Every woman needs to take that universal path to find self-worth, a voice, and a cherished life. That path is the heroine's journey, the roadmap to an amazing adventure that women travel to discover their true selves. The heroine's journey is not about getting on your superpowers and going out to fight the lions, tigers, and bears of the outside world with your might. That would be the hero's journey. This woman's journey is the internal journey that a woman takes to grow her courage and strength and travel to her best life.
I'm so excited. My book is now live on Amazon. It's been a 10-year project for me so that I can bring this information to you because it's been so valuable to me. If you'll go to Amazon, look for The Heroine's Journey, Joan Perry, you'll find the book. $4.99 for you for just a limited time. Go get it now.
Hey, Joan. How you doing
Hey,
today?
Ellen. I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I love your hair today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yes. It's particularly, I guess I'm feeling it really well today because my hair is kind of doing a little bit of all over the thing. So I'm on the lookout for good hair.
I got a good haircut last week.
Oh,
Like,
those are
that is so important.
well, and
You know,
oh my God, yes. It's so important to how you feel about yourself and how you
exactly.
identify with yourself.
Exactly.
It's,
Which is perfect for today because we're going to talk about identity.
I know, right?
And you know what? If you've got hair or some other thing that kind of defines you, that's part of your identity right there.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's strange, funny how we become identified with certain things
Uh-huh.
like hair or eyes or a piece of jewelry or a style of clothes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So I have a question for you because you're such an amazing athlete. You know,
Okay.
you decided somewhere along the line to identify with that.
Yes.
And identity to me, because I think we should define it in our conversation, but identity to me means belonging. It's
Interesting.
kind
Like,
of,
go a little deeper there.
yeah, because, if you identify as an athlete, then you sort of belong to that group.
Yeah.
If you identify as something negative, you belong to that group too. So my question to start off our conversation is what was it either that someone said to you or you decided to believe or the culture told you or maybe your parents told you? Give some insight into what was it that caused you to identify with being such an athlete?
I think it was growing up just playing sports. Like, I loved playing sports. Like, when I was in school, middle school particularly, I think was the first sport that I really did organized was
Uh-huh.
basketball. And then kind of from there it blossomed to, I did basketball, I did volleyball, I did little, actually I take that back. I did little league actually as well.
Wow.
Which then turned into softball or tennis. I did swimming. I competed
Uh-huh.
in swimming. And so it was sort of like all of the things that I did were focused on that type of thing in using my body for a sport, for an athletic sweating. I love the feeling of working hard and just like sweat pouring off of me.
Uh-huh.
It's not
And
glamorous, but it feels so good.
and I'm asking a deeper question too, is that, before you ever did that first athletic thing, can you recall that someone said something to you or you decided that you got prestige out of it or you, you know, kind of what was it that sparked the flame that you decided to identify with that?
I think it was I was I was genetically gifted in so much
Uh-huh.
as that I had good hand-eye coordination and I was good at it. Like it came naturally. Which is not to say that you don't have to work on it. And that's,
Mhm.
and probably me not doing the work is why I didn't do it in college and beyond. But it came naturally. Like, you know, I don't know if you had this, but in elementary school, like we would have one of our classes would be like a PE type of class. And we would do like little running races, like across the field or something like that. And I would do that and I would come in like at the front of the pack.
Uh-huh.
And that made me feel so good, like so
Uh-huh.
strong, so powerful, so good, um, that I wanted to keep, I guess, to keep that up,
Mhm.
to keep doing
Yeah.
that, getting that feeling.
Yeah. So you created your sense of identity initially by what felt good.
Yeah.
And then were there people around you or the culture or some other things that encouraged you?
Uh, Probably my mom encouraged me.
Yeah.
Because my mom is also very athletic or active, I should say. I
Mhm.
mean, for God's sakes, when I was growing up, for a while there, like her job, what she was doing to earn money was shear sheep,
Wow, that's
which is
amazing.
not for the tame.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but that physicality was definitely
Mhm.
there.
Yeah. Because we're asking the question here is how do we develop an identity for ourselves? How do we decide who we are, what we are, how we're
Mm-hmm.
going to see ourselves? Because several things happen with that. It's how you show up in the world, and it's also who you decide to belong with.
Yeah, and uh, what the world gives you affirmation about too.
Exactly. So if you heard messages that were negative about you and you decided to hold on to that identity and
Yeah.
think of yourself in that way. And I'll give an example. As I went through the really, really rough times in my life, there were people around me who wanted to tell me I was something I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to tell me like you're this or you're that, and they were trying to paint me badly.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly they wanted to paint me badly because it served them. They really wanted to see me fall to victimhood and to lose my grip and not see myself well. And one of the things that I was going to this therapist at the time, and one of the things she recommended that I do was to go home and put around me all the things that reminded me of the identity of who I was that was positive.
Interesting. That
Yeah.
I can see how that could be really powerful too,
Uh-huh.
to remind you.
Uh-huh. So, that the question became is how was I choosing my identity? Because
Yeah.
it was going to have everything to do with how I got myself out of the mess I was in
Yeah.
and
Well,
who I believed I was.
and I think a lot of times we don't choose our identity. Our
That's
identity is chosen for us or given sort of to us.
that's the huge message in our conversation today is who chooses your identity? Because truly you can't own your own life if you don't choose your identity.
Yeah.
So I went home that day, and by then I'd written my book, A Girl Needs Cash. So I got a big box out of them and I put them all over my house. And then I got some pictures that were me in loving situations, and I put
Nice.
those all over my house. And I really sort of developed this sanctuary that reminded me because I was having trouble feeling it at the time because there were so many people who were trying to tell me my identity. And I kept thinking, I am not who you think I am. And so I put all this stuff around me, messages that were positive. Like I have one that says, trust yourself. You know more than you think you do. That hangs next to my computer. Because the real question is, who makes up our identity? Is it authentic? Because like you're saying in your story about the about athletics, That
Hmm.
was authentic for you.
Yeah.
Somebody didn't impose that on you. And then you decided, okay, I'm going to choose that identity. No, that came from the core of you.
Well, and it's interesting, like thinking about the authentic identity of yourself versus something that's put on. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, and it sort of happens. I think of it in two ways. There is the experience of, I know you just came back from a reunion, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and there is like going back there for the
Uh-huh.
reunion is a little bit like going back into this skin that doesn't necessarily fit anymore.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I also feel like that same thing happens sometimes when I go visit my mom or something like that. Like she she and I a little bit revert to like when
Uh-huh.
I was in my teens or whatever. And it's really weird.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But it is sliding back into an identity that used to be you potentially, but is
Yes.
no longer you. And it's like, how do you like get that separation
Uh-huh.
again?
Exactly, because the question we're asking is, how do you come up with your identity? And is the identity that you came up with serving you?
Yeah.
Because if you find yourself going back there and turning into a teenager, maybe that's not what you want to do at this stage in life.
Yeah. Well, and I think that also like is that's the huge question that I think we should always be asking ourselves, whether it's about our identity, it's about the stories we tell or whatever, is it serving me?
Yes, exactly. And then the bigger question too is, how do we as women get an identity in our worlds?
A lot of times it's given to us or it's put upon us, I should say.
Yes, because you told me an amazing story about your mother. Maybe you can tell us that story because, as I've been thinking about identity, one of the things that you and I have come to understand is that the hero is given much more of an identity. The woman, as a heroine, it's not so clear where we get our identity.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times for women particularly, the identity that they have or that they take on is like they have to really fight to separate themselves from the identity of wife and mother and sister and daughter and
Uh-huh.
uh coworker or whatever. um but so the story that I had told you was, so my mom has been married 3 times, and so my last name is Egan, my sister's last name is Meyer, and on the third marriage she was like, nope, I'm going back to my maiden name. I'm not going to change my name for this third marriage. So I always used to laugh when I was talking to people, and I would say, like, when you would, back in the day when you had the little voicemail thing with the little machine and the
The answering
the
machine.
answering machine, um, it would sound almost like a law firm because the message would be, uh, Crisetto Preston Egan Meyer residence. It was like a law firm.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And when you think about that for us, because traditionally we have given up our last names in marriage,
Mm-hmm.
you know, isn't that kind of like we give up our identity? And didn't your mother give up her identity like 3 times?
2.5.
Yeah, right.
But yes, like it became the taking on a new last name became a new person, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, I remember reading a story one time where this woman who was a doctor, like she was a medical doctor, and somebody asked her why she didn't use her husband's last name in her practice. And her answer was, he didn't go through 8 years of medical school and pass the
Yes.
boards and, whatever. I
Uh-huh.
did that.
Because she was claiming her identity.
Yeah.
I had the same experience when I wrote my book, A Girl Needs Cash. I was married at the time, and the person I was married to wanted to insist that I use his last name. Well, up until then, I'd been using my own last name, which was Perry.
Mm-hmm.
So I told Random House, oh no, I'm going to like change my last name on the book in order to accommodate him. Because that's what we do sometimes is we give up our identity to accommodate somebody else. And
Yeah.
then as we get down the road, we ask ourselves like, well, who am I? What is my identity? And Random House said to me, you do that and we won't publish your book because nobody knows you that way. Your whole professional understanding is built upon the name that we expect that you're going to put on this book.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been a real challenge for women. Hey, exciting. Look at the screen. The book, The Heroine's Journey, The Art of Becoming the Heroine of Your Own Life, is now up. You can download it as an ebook. I got something really special for you too. The ebook is at 99 cents for the next 2 weeks. It's a special offer to our inner circle. Those of you who are listening to the great journey that we're talking about on our podcast every week. The book takes you into the understanding of the heroine's journey and your journey. And once you've read the book, we'd love for you to come back and tell us about how the heroine's journey is working out for you. Please write us a review. In the meantime, The Heroine's Journey on Amazon for 99 cents for you for just a limited time. Go get it now. You just mentioned the reunion, and because I have this new book out now called The Heroine's Journey, I wanted to go back and touch bases with some friends of mine that I saw at the reunion. And then I thought, well, wait a minute. I don't know what their married name is. You know, I'd like to send them a link for the book, but I don't know what their married name is.
Yeah.
And it's not like you can search it on Facebook and say, you know, such and such Smith who became Peterson, you know.
Yeah. No, it is an interesting conundrum that women do where I think we're really good at morphing into what other people need from us.
Uh-huh.
And so it takes commitment, it takes persistence to kind of carve out your own space to be, as you say, like who you are, to claim your identity as an actual individual person who has strengths and weaknesses, desires, goals, all of that.
Exactly, because to claim your identity is to claim your life. And you have to stop and ask the question, who's giving me my identity? Am I deciding what my identity is? Is the culture telling me what it is? Did my mother? I was so confused growing up because my mother was like, I always called her the first of the women's libbers because her identity was a strong, powerful woman until she was around my father when she turned into a mush mess because she thought she had to be whatever he wanted her to be, which for this strong woman was subservient, not having an opinion, not speaking up. So I really saw her not be consistent in her identity. And then as I looked at her and I said, well, what do I do with this? Who do I become? I was totally confused to the point that, you know, in my first marriage, I remember saying to my ex-husband, could you just tell me what you want me to be? Like, do you want me to stay home and be the wifey wife? Or do you want me to go to work and, you know, be part of this? It was confusing because at that point in my life, I didn't have a clue what my identity was. In fact, do you remember when they used to say, but women are aggressive or assertive?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that was being like labeled with a scarlet A on your forehead that said there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really know what it is, and we're not going to tell you what it is, but there's something wrong with you because you are this. And you were kind of like, well, wait a minute. What does that mean?
Yeah. How, I'm assuming that your ex-husband answered your question. And so my question to you is, how did that feel? Did it make you feel, oh, okay, now I know what I am supposed to do or how I'm supposed to be? Or did something inside of you rebel on that?
Well, not true. He never answered the question.
Oh, okay.
So I could never find the path. But that was my mistake because I was looking for somebody else to tell me what my identity was rather than me owning it at that point. And I had the same problem with my mother. You know, I was like, could you just tell me what successful is for a woman in this world? I mean, is it you get married and you belong to that group, or is it something different? Because I'm telling you, the happiest day of my life was the day my mother went to work,
Why?
because that was her identity. That was her authentic self. That's the group she wanted to belong to, was productive and capable and the things that women were then having the chance to be identified with.
Did that change how she was at home and or how she was with you?
No, because what I saw was her trying to play this role with my father and this role in the working
Mm,
environment. And so it was I remember, being young and being extremely confused by it
yeah,
because she was letting her identity be defined by whatever environment she was in.
yeah.
Now,
I
that's not to say that your identity can't be both, you know.
mhm.
It might be wife and mother, or it might be, you know, capable and able to write a book like I am today. But the issue was owning it.
Yeah. And I think that is the biggest challenge, is integrating all of those pieces together, um, so that you are moving through the world authentically.
I totally agree. And I would go one step further
Ooh,
and say that, which is so much a part of the heroine's journey, say that is identity is about claiming your self-worth.
yeah,
It's not having me be something that you want me to be. It's being something that is authentically my own and claiming my self-worth in it. That's what I watched my mother not do. Because when she was trying to be what my father wanted her to be, that she wasn't finding self-worth there. And then she was over here trying to be something else. So I really think that as a heroine, we say that the heroine's journey, the big part of the heroine's journey is claiming your self-worth and your voice.
yeah. Well, and I feel like claiming your voice comes with claiming and choosing your identity,
Hmm.
because then it's almost like, I mean, to simplify it, it's almost like suddenly what are you for and what are you against.
Uh-huh. Yes. And how can you have that sense if you don't know what your identity is?
You can't. you,
And
you're you're doing what you're told by the people in your life, by culture, by the society, by whomever, wherever.
uh-huh. And for me, identity, I have a funny question in my head, and that's what clubs do I want to belong to? You know, if I continually say bad things about myself and say that I'm not capable or whatever, I'm going to belong to that club. And then am I going to do anything productive? No. People did not believe in me when I said I was going to write a book. They were like, "What? You? Why? How? What do you know?" You know? And had I not claimed that as my identity, I never would have written a book.
did I guess I'm asking, in like what order was it? I have a book to write, I'm going to write a book, the book gets written, I am a writer, book writer, whatever? Or was it you start writing, and through the process of writing and it accumulating, that you start taking on and identifying as a writer?
I would say the latter.
Okay.
Because what I would say is that, you know, has to start within you. You have to claim something that nobody else can see in you. And that's a heroine's job, because that takes courage and strength.
Yeah.
Because most people don't see our bigger, fuller selves by any means. In fact, they'd like us to be smaller, weaker, just be a victim, you know? Then
Yeah.
we can take your money and we don't have to listen to you. So to have that sense within you of I'm something that you can't see.
It also is a little bit of, because I know that, and this is for me as well, when you're looking at something that is such a big auspicious goal, like writing a book, um, or learning or doing something that you've never contemplated before and have no skills or whatever for, there is a little bit of, you have to envision what you want or who you are, your identity. But then you also have to a little bit fake it till you make it. Like,
Yeah.
I think I was listening to somebody talk about, you know, you don't have the confidence, but you've got to put on the superhero cloak of
Uh-huh.
confidence.
Courage and strength.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then you keep moving forward. And as you move forward, that cloak will become part of you.
Uh-huh. And I want to say that identity is a bigger problem for women than it is for men.
Yeah.
Our society gives men identity. They can become legendary, they build statues to them, they go out and fight the war, you can see who won the war. You know, men get achievement, they get recognized. I've asked the college that I went to, so what is success for a woman? How do you identify the contribution she makes and reward her for it?
And
Because we know what it is for a man. They go out and fight the lions, tigers, and bears, and they bring back the bacon. And so identity is something that they can tangibly work to achieve.
mm-hmm.
But
But
I think,
what did your college say to you when you asked that question?
duh, that's a really good question. We don't know how to answer that. Duh, duh. And I keep asking again and again the president of the college. And I'm about to send him, our new book, The Heroine's Journey, and say, here's the work I've been talking to you about. Because these are evolving conversations for women. What is a woman's identity that leads her to her personal success and she can acclaim herself for as she gets on in life?
Yeah.
Those are those are not questions we've asked. We've expected women to just kind of be happy with whatever comes along.
True.
But
True
when we're
that.
talking about our bigger sense of fulfillment, our bigger sense of who we are, our bigger sense of how we define ourselves, and we claim our identity, we claim our heroine, then we got some bigger questions to ask.
Yeah. Well, and it also leads to the contribution that you're talking about. Like, how are we contributing to the greater good, so to speak?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And I think every human wants that to
Uh-huh.
some degree. And being able
Uh-huh.
to quantify that fighting the lions and tigers and bears is as valuable as a mother who raises children who go on to do X,
Uh-huh.
or what have you. Like, those things should have equal value because they are equally contributable to culture and society, and
Mm-hmm.
the continuing on of the human race, so to speak.
Exactly. And we're not applying judgment here. We're just awakening the idea that choose your identity.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to be known for? You know?
What do you want to take I don't even know how many hours of life that you have, minutes of life that you have, and what do you want those to be focused on
Mm-hmm.
to leave your mark?
Uh-huh. They build statues to men. How many statues do you see built to women? Duh.
Not many.
Not many. Not many. But yet our contributions and our ability to contribute is there.
Yeah.
Big time. And I'm going to put something on the table here. This is going to be controversial, but
Ooh.
I think women need to step it up.
Okay. How so?
I think women need to think more about where they are major contributors. So I'm going to kind of take a tangent here, but I've had to laugh in the last week because, you know, this new book's coming out. I've asked multiple people to go write reviews
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, to download the book. And here's what I found. It's the men who support me the most.
I could see that. Men know the quantifiable value of the review.
Yes.
Definitely.
Uh-huh. And I've been scratching my head saying, why don't women know that? You know, women, I sort of described them as cats this past week. They're like, when I get around to it, you know, take a message when I get around to it. Well, of the 50 that I've asked, by the time they get around to it, it won't be useful.
Yeah. Yeah. But I can see why that would be the case. Doing a review is certainly a quantifiable marker of success,
Uh-huh.
which is definitely falling more in the masculine column than
Uh-huh.
potentially the feminine
The
column.
men got it, and they were
Yeah.
right on it. To the point that somebody said to me, Joan, do you realize that all the reviews for the book are men? Was that you who said that to me?
I
You
don't think
know?
it was. It might have been Jacob actually, but
Yeah, because we love Jacob, who's on our team. You know, the men who've really helped to bring this book to the people who've really helped to bring this book to fruition are men. You know, so
yeah.
maybe they have some kind of a thing in their brain that helps them know take this and this and this to get to the identity that I want to be.
Well, I think this is something that we've talked about before as well, but men with boys and young men, like there is this unspoken uh rule that men teach young men who teach boys how to be men, like how to
Right.
play the game, how to be successful, how to quantify success, how to,
Mhm.
you know, when you meet a man for the first time every day, you shake their hands. If you want to alpha them, then you bring them into your space. If you want to, but you know, like those are skills. Those are conversations that men have with their sons.
Uh-huh.
Women aren't taught that. Daughters
And
aren't taught that by their fathers,
and
or
as
by their
our
mothers.
identity of women, you know, do we identify with that?
What do you
Because
mean?
with just what you're talking about, which is mentoring, which is, you
Mm.
know, who do we see ourselves to be so that we do create something. You know, if I'd love to have a conversation with my mother about this now. What were you trying to teach me?
Or the question of like, was there a thought of the fact that you would emulate what you saw?
Exactly, exactly. Because this whole conversation around how do we choose our identity,
Mm-hmm.
because we choose to own our life when we choose to own our identity. And how do we have the courage and strength to stand in an identity that is going to serve us and the people around us? Those are big questions.
Yeah. And it may not serve the people around you in the way that they would like.
Exactly. Exactly. So right now I'm choosing to stand in the identity of I write a book.
Which you have, which is
Yes.
out.
Yes,
Like
which
it's
is out now.
quantifiable.
So exciting. So then I have to ask myself, like, what other identities do I choose? You know, do I choose an identity that says what makes me attractive is my brain and my ability to use it? Or do I stand in identity that says, it's my body and my sexiness and whatever, which we all know fades at some point, and then that identity goes away. So what are we leaning on to
Yeah.
choose who we want to be and how we see ourselves?
And there can be multiple identities. I mean, I think at the end of the day, they have to be uh, cohesive, like they all have to come together.
Uh-huh.
But like as you were just saying, you have an identity as a writer, now a multiple book writer. You have an identity of somebody who is brilliant and knows what they're talking about, both in terms of the heroine's journey, in terms of finance, in terms of all of these different things.
Thank you.
I think also that you have other identities or ways that you identify yourself.
And the question I ask myself is, what am I am identifying with serving my self-worth? Because in the end, or along the way, self-worth is what will determine your destiny.
Talk more about that.
Your self-worth affects how you feel, how you act, and eventually your destiny. So if I'm choosing to identify with things like Joe or Susie over there said, you're not a writer, then I'm identifying with either the culture or somebody else's belief or something else. I'm not owning me. And ultimately, that will affect my actions and therefore my destiny.
Yeah. I mean, think about it is a cliche, but think about how many people have wanted to write a book and the book remained inside of them and they never wrote it. They never gave the world the gift of their thoughts in that way.
87% of the population wants to write a book, 1% does.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that comes from everybody's authentic self. I know someone who says, that's just not me. I'm not a writer. All good and fine. But the question is, are you being active about what you're identifying yourself with to create your identity? What groups are you choosing to belong to, which eventually affect your self-worth and your destiny?
And it comes full circle.
And it comes full circle. Big, 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 big. Yeah. So our purpose today was just to awaken the idea that you can choose your identity. And maybe to have you ask, gosh, am I letting somebody else choose my identity? Is the culture telling me who I am? Is my mother from way back there still telling me who I am? Did I have a second grade teacher that said something to me that I harbored and to this day still affects my identity? It's almost like you have to look at your identity like you look at your clothes closet. I'm in the process of cleaning out clothes right now. And isn't it so great when you walk into your clothes closet and you can actually see what's there? And you
Yes.
can say, this goes with that. And it's not so cluttered that you can't figure it out. And really, this whole process of identity, I think, is much like that, to become really conscious of where you get these beliefs that you harbor and hold on to that say, this is who I am. When life was really tough and I got all those books out and put them all around me, I had a whole case full of books, my living room on the mantle, my bedroom, the kitchen. It was to remind myself, this is my identity. And you guys can all flap over there, but I'm bigger than you think I am. And this is my identity. And that's the path of the heroine's journey.
I like also the analogy that you gave about going into your closet and sort of doing a spring cleaning, because identities like clothes, like sometimes it's time to send them on their way to the next person, or send them out into the universe and take on or keep the clothing that makes you powerful and strong and bolsters your self-worth.
And moves you on to the next thing that you could be capable of if you just identified with it.
Yeah.
It's a big subject.
We could talk about this for a long, long time.
I think so too. But we're so glad you joined us today. We love it when you come join us in this conversation. We really hope that you'll put a comment in that can share with us your story or your idea. You can go to our Facebook group. We're just so happy to have you with us and for us to be exploring these topics, which are new for women and yet open the vistas in front of us, because heaven knows it's time for women to claim their self-worth and their voice.
Yeah. And take their lives in the direction that serves them best.
We want them to go. Oh, yes. So we say, journey onward. Come join us again next week, where we'll have another very interesting conversation. And in the meantime, choose to be the heroine of your own life. Journey onward.
That is this week's episode of The Heroine's Journey. You can access the blog post for this episode, along with other great resources, at walkthejourney.com. Also, get your free ebook at walkthejourney.com so you can say goodbye to just surviving and turn into thriving. Join us next week for another fun, inspiring, and uplifting episode. If you love this episode, feel free to subscribe and give us a review on iTunes. Stay in touch on other social media platforms, Instagram and our Facebook group, both at The Heroine's Journey LLC. Until next time.